You're listening to the Integrative Health Simplified podcast with Kari, Coody, pharmacist turned integrative health practitioner. Here we talk all things straightforward and honest when it comes to holistic health and simplifying your best steps forward while eliminating all the gimmicks and confusion. Leave the overwhelm at the door and get ready for impactful action steps that get to the real root of your issue and actually move the needle in your health. Let's dive into the show. Hey there, and welcome back in to Integrative Health Simplified podcast. My name is Kari. I'm your host, and we are continuing the series Common Health Misconceptions. And today we are talking about veggies. So veggies are definitely a controversial topic, and you might think, well, why are they controversial? Well, I know that if you've been in the health world, you've definitely heard from several sources, maybe even myself, just eat more veggies, right? That's something that we hear a lot. And I want you to take in this information and digest it, right? No pun intended. Once you listen to the information, you'll know why I said that. But honestly, it's something that I had to learn more about and kind of digest for myself and figure out what was best for me. But it's something I honestly didn't really know. And so I am excited to dive into this information and just give you a little bit more to chew on when it comes to veggies. And so again, we have always heard, even probably from growing up, right? Eat your veggies. 8 to 9 servings of vegetables a day is give or take the recommended amount that we hear. And I just want to kind of pose the question, is it really the best thing that we can consume? Is it the most nutrient dense food that we can consume? I'm not sure. I'm going to give you some information. I'm going to share my opinion with you, and I encourage you to go do your own research and figure out, again, what is best for you. But when it comes to veggies, there are a couple things we should note, and there are obviously different kinds of vegetables. So in particular, I'm going to be talking about above ground leafy vegetables when I'm talking about the things that I'm going to share with you next. There are 2 things that you need to know when it comes to specifically above ground leafy vegetables, because these are things that we've been told to eat more of, like kale and broccoli and spinach and, all of the above ground leafy vegetables, right? A lot of the cruciferous vegetables. So number 1, above ground leafy vegetables are above ground. So it would make sense why they have to have different protective mechanisms from invaders and from predators, right? It just makes sense. That's how nature works, right? So with these natural protectants, they're called plant toxins. These are things like oxalates, lectins, lignans, and these are things that are naturally in the plant to protect themselves. And so these are things like in the leaves and stems and seeds of these plants. So that's there for a reason, obviously. But when we consume them, especially in the raw form, they can actually be somewhat of a digestive disruptor, because if you think about other animals that eat these plants, they have a different digestive system than us, right? Obviously, something like a cow is going to eat a lot of roughage, a lot of these types of above ground, right? They eat grass and things like that, but they have the stomach to digest that. And so they get a lot of benefit from that. And so whenever we ingest above ground veggies, and maybe they are raw, it just takes a lot of digestive power to break these things down. And so that's what I want to add into this conversation of there are varying degrees of digestive health. And to be honest, most of us have a compromised digestive system in some way, shape, or form, right? Some people have just a little bit of digestive disturbance. Some people have a lot, and they have a really, really hard time digesting almost anything. So I get that there's a wide variety here. However, this can really be an issue, and we're not necessarily going to get a lot of the benefit that is in that vegetable if we can't digest it properly. So that's what I want you to be thinking about when I'm talking about these things. It's not necessarily right. Like, we have to remember something like God made nature perfectly. However, we're human, right? Our bodies are constantly just decaying. Once we're born, right, we're mortal. And so we're going to have different health things that come up that really play into how we can digest and take in and absorb things that we put in our bodies. And so I want you to consider that this is a part of the vegetable that obviously is there for a reason. However, when we take it in, especially remember in the raw form, it just takes a lot of digestive power to break that down and actually get the nutrients that are in there. So that's number one thing to remember, especially about leafy green above ground vegetables. Number two is that they are high in fiber. And that's another thing that you've probably heard is just eat more fiber, especially for gut health. Maybe even constipation. That's something that I've dealt with for several years. And so that's what I always heard, like just eat more fiber. And so specifically the fiber that is in these veggies that I'm referring to, like the leafy green vegetables, there's pectin and there's also cellulose. So pectin is a long fermentable fiber, and it's something that our body can't break down super, super well, especially with impaired digestion. Cellulose is more of what we refer to as like roughage. It's mainly in the green plants, and in a healthy person, it actually can act as a bulking agent to help push out stools and bowels, keep them moving. However, in an unhealthy gut, it can actually irritate the gut. And so, insert personal story. I actually used to eat leafy green salad. Some things were cooked on there, but mostly they were raw. I used to eat that every single day for lunch. And as I have referred to, I struggled with a sluggish digestive system for years and years and years. And I never knew that just by changing this one thing, I could actually help my digestion out so much. And that's what I did about a year to a year and a half ago. I actually switched up my daily salad at lunch for something that was cooked and saw a tremendous difference in my digestive system just from that one thing. And I always felt really just like so much pride when, I would say, oh, I have a salad every day for lunch. I liked the way it tasted. It was good. It was tasty. However, it wasn't really the best thing for my body at that time. Now, does that mean I never eat salad? No, that doesn't mean I never eat salad. I'll have a salad as like an accompaniment, like a side salad, or I'll just, I'll have different raw vegetables that I'm talking about from time to time. However, it's not the bulk of my diet and it's not the bulk of my plate. I think that's a really big key thing to keep in mind here. And so you might be asking, like, what about all the nutrients in vegetables? Well, I want to just give you something else to think about. Not that they don't have a lot of nutrients. However, if you can't digest and absorb them, are they really doing you that much good? I'm not sure. That might be something that you have to think about and take into consideration where you're at with your health. And, are you having a lot of issues with your digestion? Maybe not. Maybe they are really good for you at this time. But it is something to consider when so many of us have impaired digestion. And really, whenever you think about impaired digestion, not only can it cause like disturbances like constipation or diarrhea or, IBS type of symptoms, but that really has a ripple effect to how much you're absorbing from these foods. Like how much nutrition are you actually absorbing? Because it really sometimes doesn't matter as much what all that we eat. It's how much we absorb. And so that's kind of the conversation that I want to just have today is how much of these great nutritious things are we getting from these vegetables that we're eating? So sort of, just to kind of narrow down this topic and just kind of round out the conversation, really, when we think about eating plants, they should be eaten properly and with respect. Like that's how really our ancestors ate vegetables. They didn't eat them for whole meals. They were more of a side or a condiment. And this is the way our ancestors enjoyed them, really as a complement to a meal to add texture or flavor or color. That is great. I think we definitely should be doing that. I think too, this kind of goes back to the extreme mentality. I talked about that in a previous episode. I'll link that below. If that's something that you struggle with, like, whoa, Kari's telling me all this about veggies. Like maybe I just don't need to eat veggies. Of course, I'm not telling you not to eat veggies. I just want you to consider how you're consuming them. Is it a whole meal? Are you making is your whole plate vegetables? Is it a condiment or a side? Are they raw or cooked? These are things that are very important to consider in this conversation. So remember, we are not cows and rabbits and chickens. Like vegetables can't completely nourish us. Like I said, most vegetables contain a lot of indigestible fiber like cellulose, and they can contain plant toxins just depending on what type of vegetable it is. So when you really fill your diet primarily with veggies, your gut health can get impaired. This can actually cause overgrowth of bacteria, slow transit time, like as your body struggles to kind of break down all of this indigestible fiber. And in return, you might feel just bloated and maybe constipated, or maybe you're just having a lot of diarrhea and a lot of undigested food in your stool. Maybe you're having very little energy. Those are things that, right, we don't want. And so I want to kind of get you to maybe look at this in a little bit of a different way and how you're consuming the vegetables that you are consuming so that it works better for you, right? You're consuming these vegetables because, yes, they can definitely be tasty if they're cooked right. And you know, they're paired with, a nice healthy fat to help absorb some of those nutrients. So they can definitely be, and they should be, part of a well-balanced diet. However, you need to consider how you're consuming them. And really, I would propose in this conversation that it's actually animal products that are the absolute most nutrient-dense foods that we can consume, not necessarily veggies. And the truth is, like, God made all of these things. Like, these are all whole foods, right? Vegetables are a whole food. And I talk about how focusing on whole foods is the best thing that we can do. It still is. However, this is also part of the conversation because we need to consider how we're, and like in what combination, in what ratio, and you know, all these things we need to consider in how we're consuming them. So there are definitely a lot of factors that go into a conversation like this. And again, the extreme mentality is probably not your friend here, because I'm definitely not saying don't consume veggies. I'm just saying if you have, you know, questions, I think you should definitely look into this topic a little bit more. I'll share some resources that I have loved to dig into in the past and still do refer back to. I'll share some of those in the show notes with you guys and in the description of this video. Because really the main thing that I changed and that really helped me is I stopped eating a lot of raw vegetables. Now, of course, there are some caveats to that. Raw carrots are one of those because that can actually help digestion. However, I definitely stopped with all the salads and things like that and started just consuming more cooked vegetables. Because if you think about all the things that I've talked about, cooking vegetables actually takes away that plant toxin, and it actually breaks down some of those fibers so that they are much more easily digestible. So simply cooking your vegetables properly, that's what I meant by properly preparing them, can really make a major difference. And I'm a testament of that for sure. So I hope this conversation just got you thinking. And again, I always love to continue these conversations in email or in Instagram DM. Those are two of the main ways that people get in contact with me. Love to have continued conversation. And if you have questions or thoughts, please share them with me there. I would love to have a chat with you. So thank you for joining me on this episode. I hope the one takeaway that you get is just to assess your specific situation and just see if you are having a lot of digestive issues and you are consuming a lot of raw vegetables, hey, let's just make some changes, right? Let's just try to consume a bit more cooked vegetables rather than so many raw vegetables and just see how you do. I think it's so important with anything in health is to just listen to our body. What is it telling you? Whenever you make these changes, do things kind of alleviate? Do your symptoms get a little bit better? Or maybe they get worse? Who knows? You've just got to try and experiment and really listen to your body, because your body is always trying to talk to you and it's always trying to tell you something. So the whole point is to just listen. Thanks for joining me. I just so appreciate you guys being here, and having this conversation with you is something that I love to do. See you on the next episode. If this episode has served you in any way, I would love it if you'd share any aha moments or takeaways over on Instagram and tag me at Kari Coody. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button so we can continue to learn and grow together.